Welcome, everyone, to our definitive ranking of The Legend of Zelda.
Definitive.
Absolute. People are always talking about which Zelda game is better than that Zelda game, but we're going to lay it all to rest with our new series we have. We're going to go through the entire series of main Zelda games.
Right. We're not including Four Swords Adventures, Triforce Heroes, Wand of Gamelon, Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land,
Link's Crossbow Training.
So the major single-player focused experiences, which we've listed as 16 games.
And we're going to do 4 an episode, so this is going to be a 4-episode series. We're going to draw them at random, and it's going to be a discussion between the two of us to kind of...
hopefully reach a consensus.
Yeah, reach a consensus. We haven't really talked about our opinions too much, so we're not really sure where we lie on certain things.
But the big caveat, we each have one usage of Nehru's love, where we get to protect a game, basically, and unilaterally decide where it goes on the list.
Yeah. So we've got this nice little Triforce cup here.
Yes, licensed, I believe.
And we, for our sake, we are going to just draw some note cards, and just see where it goes. You want to go first?
All right, so this game...
I gave it a good shake already, just so you know.
Spirit Tracks.
Okay, this is a good one to start with. We're hoping it would be one that we haven't talked a lot about.
So there's really nothing to talk about right now.
Right.
Because it's the only game we've picked.
But what are your initial thoughts on Spirit Tracks?
I think Spirit Tracks is a very overlooked game, because I think it sort of gets lumped in, sort of dismissed at times. It's filled with its flaws. There's a lot of things I love about Spirit Tracks and a lot of things I don't like. I like the different regions. I actually like the overworld with the train. I think it's okay. I'm not a big fan of the Spirit Flute, period.
Oh, sure. That's a big criticism a lot of people have.
It's a bit of a turnoff for me.
A lot of people don't like the train aspects. How do you feel about that?
The overworld is okay. I actually like the Force Gem aspect of it, where you get the various Force Gems and new tracks are opened.
Okay.
So it's all the side quest material, but I like how sometimes it creates shortcuts or it connects two areas of the tracks that were previously inaccessible, or it brings up new stops on the train tracks. And there's a lot of locations if you fully unlock the map. It's a good game. I think from a lot of aspects, it's a step up over Phantom Hourglass.
It's a step up.
In a lot of aspects.
Okay. I see what you're saying. For me, it didn't compel me very much. I didn't really like the train sections as much. I just kind of wanted to get to where I was going and stuff like that. But it's not the controls. Like you said, you like the controls. I really actually think the controls of the two DS games are really fun. So
all right,
we gotta shake it up between games here.
Spirit Tracks is getting compared with Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
Oh boy. What do you think about Zelda 2 before we even compare them?
These do have similar comparisons, and I think they're both overlooked sometimes.
I definitely agree.
And both times they sort of get dismissed. So I hate using that phrase, but sometimes people call it the black sheep of the series. But at the time it released, there was only 2 Zelda games, and 2 had distinctive styles. Nobody could have predicted what the future was going to hold for the series. So it only became different
later on,
in hindsight, when looking back at it.
I mean, you were really young when this was out, right? Or were you even born?
I was born.
You were. But so you don't know for sure what was the response to that game when it came out?
The thing is, I've since read Nintendo Power magazine, and I talked to people that are slightly older than me who played it when they were younger, when they were when it was new, and it's universally enjoyed for the most part by that audience.
Yeah,
I feel that it is the younger audience, my age group and perhaps even younger, who grew up post NES, that kind of dismiss it a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe they grew up with A Link to the Past, or they grew up with Ocarina, or they grew up with Wind Waker, and then they've gone back and played the series and they think, wow, this is a Zelda game? Sometimes I don't think that's fair, and I think that has a lot to do with the style of play that evolved over time. NES games had its own degree of difficulty. Things have gotten easier over time. I think a lot of people hate on Adventure of Link for being difficult.
That's the only thing that really stops it from me, but only because you don't get a lot of forgiving kind of save points when you die. You always have to go back to the same place.
Yeah.
So retrekking to certain areas is a challenge in itself, but not necessarily fun to get to.
In the grand scheme of things, though, as you progress in the game, once you get the hammer and whatnot, the world might seem large, but it really isn't. You can actually reach almost anywhere in just a matter of a minute or two. And it's not...
There are a few specific points, though, where it is really annoying.
Traversing through Death Mountain the first time through is really hard. Yes, when you're fighting the Dairas and whatnot, it's very unforgiving.
Despite that, I still think it has few things I consider like flaws that really stop it from... I think it's a great game, actually.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you know what? I think these two are also probably the two most underrated soundtracks in the Zelda series. I think people overlook, because I think some of my favorite tracks are from Adventure of Link.
Yes. Yeah, it has a very short track list, but all of them are the best, or some of the best, of what their type of song they're doing. Like overworld song, town theme, dungeon theme. Yeah. And
Spirit Tracks has such a phenomenal soundtrack, headlined by the overworld theme, or the main theme, which finished at number 3 on Zelda Dungeon's top 50 Zelda songs of all time.
Yeah. This is where we get into the problem of, we're talking about how do you compare a game like Breath of the Wild with Oracle of Seasons? You know, it's like they're so different. Like these two are so very different.
Yeah.
You know, this song, Spirit Tracks has a million songs or whatever. When we're comparing it to Zelda 2 that has 5 songs. That's just talking about soundtracks. Then we're talking about story and character, you know what I mean? Like Bagu over so it's like it's really hard for me. What's your like initial instinct about these two?
I think I'm a part of the older generation a little bit that has a little more appreciation for Zelda 2 than I think most of the Zelda audience. To me, I think Zelda 2 is a notch above Spirit Tracks.
I actually agree with you. For me, what really does it is that, like I said, there's very few things that I really have a problem with. I felt very driven to beat that game. I beat it only 7 years ago as an adult or a young adult, so way after its generation, but it was even decades later, it was satisfying to beat. So for me, I felt very pushed and satisfied by beating that game. Spirit Tracks, I was like, I got kind of sick of it a little bit, even though it is a great game. I'm not trying to disparage it.
So as of right now, Adventure of Link is the greatest Legend of Zelda game.
And
definitively.
Who knows if it might stay there. All right, we've got 2 more to do this episode, so
we've got Oracle of Ages.
All right.
To me, this is a no-brainer. Oracle of Ages
That's
is
one
on
of your
top.
favorite
I think
games.
Oracle of Ages. We're going through all the deep cuts here because I think Oracle of Ages. It's another game that, because it was a very, very late Game Boy Color game, when the Game Boy Advance was already out, it was kind of like the end of that cycle. I think it kind of got a little bit overlooked, especially because it has a sister game with Oracle of Seasons, so they sort of get lumped in. Like, oh, it's one of those handheld Game Boy.
People say the Oracles, you know. I'm even guilty of this.
That said, Oracle of Ages is one of my favorite games. I love the time element in the game, how it has the exact same overworld of Librina, both in the past and present,
right?
And how in some cases the things that you do in the past affect the present in like right away, because you have to do specific actions, and then oh wow, you move this plant and all of a sudden there's a giant tree of vines that you can climb up to in the present, and like it has those immediate, you know, reaction things.
Not saying it's a better game, but it has a more involved time mechanic than Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The past and present, we'll say.
It's because it's like right away as well.
Yeah,
like
you can do it from different spots.
Yeah, in the later, once you learn the Tune of Ages, you can just immediately go from past to present.
Yeah.
Without, you know, you don't have to only warp in specific locations and whatnot.
To me, it perfects that kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
and also it perfected like that era of 2D Zelda. Like I think it's the last of that era almost. You could say.
Yeah, Minish Cap did come after, but this game, and I also feel this is a note to, like, I think from a story perspective, Spirit Tracks, I think actually has an excellent story.
Yeah.
But it's one of those games which is a fault of a lot of Zelda games, where there is so much story in that first hour of that game.
Yes.
And then nothing for the next 80% of your journey. Mm-hmm. And then there's some stuff towards the end, and then obviously at the end of the game. Whereas I feel Oracle of Ages has one of the greatest like continuity in terms of story throughout the entire progression of the game, where you're not going massive stretches of the game with like, oh, go collect these 4 mirrors of shards or something, where, all right, for the next 10 hours there's nothing happening in the story or anything. Varen is the big enemy from the beginning.
Sure.
But right away, she takes control of Nehru, and then she takes control, and then like after you sort of free Nehru from her spell, she takes control of Queen Ambi and starts affecting the things in the past. And one of my favorite, I think I've mentioned this on a Hyrule Compendium episode, one of my favorite scenes is when one of like sort of the secondary protagonists, this guy named Ralph, where he's fighting Queen Ambi, who's possessed by Varen, but Ralph is a descendant of Queen Ambi. And he has this favorite saying, like, if I strike you down and like defeat you and kill you, I guess doesn't use that for nobody dies in Nintendo, but he realizes that would cause his own existence to come into question, but he does it anyway, or he tries to at least. And so it has like, it's actually a deeper story than you think.
I love when out of these really simple games with these really simple graphics and stuff like that, where they can tell really affecting stories through that medium. Mm-hmm. This is one of the heights of that, I would say.
So for me, I'm putting Oracle of Ages above both Adventure of Link and Spirit Tracks.
This is interesting because I would not begrudge you of that, and I would agree with your decision. So I go ahead. I mean, I just feel like we haven't butt heads much yet, but this is all coming together so far.
So Zelda 2, it had its moment on top, but now Oracle of Ages is the greatest, most definitive, best Zelda game ever.
Wow. All right. So we've got 2D games mostly. So none of the ones that are, I feel like, other people think of as like, we've talked about it, all overlooked.
I think when we had our greatest Zelda game amongst the entire staff of Zelda Dungeon, none of these 3 got any votes. So
yeah. What's next?
Oracle of Seasons.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
So episode 1 is all these kind of overlooked games. That means our later episodes are going to be wild.
So I'll start off the argument here. I hate when Ages and Seasons get lumped together. I feel they're very distinctive games, and had they not released at the same time and had the word Oracle in it or something, people wouldn't be pairing them together like they do. The basis of Seasons is a remake of The Legend of Zelda. That was sort of where it spawned. That was one of the original ideas, and you can see a lot of that in the final product. Just looking at the bosses.
Oh, right.
First boss you fight is Aquamentus. Second boss you fight is Dodongo. You later fight Gliok. You later fight Manhandla, and it's like all of the same Goma's in there. All of the same bosses. Basically, they resurface here. Even the first dungeon, Gnarled Root Dungeon, is almost identical in terms of the landscape, the map, as the Eagle, the first dungeon in The Legend of Zelda.
It loses a bit for originality, maybe?
A little bit. Just a little bit.
The Seasons mechanic, though, is really cool.
Yeah, it's got one giant world. The overworld is really large, actually. There's a lot of screens. And each of the areas or territories sort of have their own default season. So every time you go into like the Woods of Winter, it's winter. By default, it's always that. But every region has its own tree stump, and then like as you upgrade the Rod of Seasons to get all the other, the different seasons, you can then you go to those tree stumps and you can change it to spring, summer, fall, whatever it is. And so it's actually the overworld times 4 in a sense.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like sometimes cryptic secrets where there's like an early portion of the game that you go to and it's always spring, I'm just saying. And then like early in the game you get the winter season. So you can change it to winter and you go back and forth. It's not until much later in the game do you get like the autumn season.
Yeah.
But if you go back to that first area and you put it in autumn, it's like, oh, one of the trees has withered or something. And you suddenly have access to an area that you don't know, and maybe it's a heart piece or a ring or a gacha seed or something. But it does make navigating the world and exploration a little more different because you want to return to areas you've already been to see what they look like in other seasons.
Try out all the different seasons. So yeah, I think that's a really strong mechanic, I think.
Yeah.
And when I play that game, it feels like I'm playing this classic Zelda, but like enhanced still. But I will agree, that it shouldn't be above ages.
Yeah. I also feel that I don't think the story was as... I didn't feel impacted by it as well.
Okay.
Onyx is a cool villain, but I didn't feel... He didn't do it for me. He didn't do it... Like, the whole possession story in Ages was a lot... that was a lot more enticing to me. I was actually interested to see what happens. When I think of what happened, the story in Seasons, I don't really think it has much of a story, really.
Yeah.
It plays off the Legend of Zelda, where it has a very simplistic story and not much is going on.
If we were ranking these right now based on story, it would, for me, I'd maybe put it at the bottom. I mean, it's hard with Zelda 2 a lot story.
Yeah, that story in Adventure of Link.
It's all in the booklet or whatever. But still, okay. But I don't necessarily think it's the bottom of these games.
Overall, or from a story?
Overall, I'm saying when I think of the story, it's less memorable. But
to me, Oracle of Ages stays on top.
Yes,
I feel
100%
adamantly
agree.
about that. I'm gonna say of these 4, I would say it either fits at the very bottom or between Zelda 2 and Spirit Tracks.
I would put it between the two if it were me. I would agree to that. Are you okay with that?
I think I'm okay with this decision.
So Oracle of Ages remains on top for now.
It's the greatest Legend of Zelda game ever.
All right. So
amongst these 4.
Okay, so kind of a interesting episode where we got out of the way some of the overlooked games, as you said.
Yeah.
So that means in future episodes we're gonna get some of the heavy hitters.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna dethrone Oracle of Ages. At least not in my opinion.
Oh, Mas might fight for this one.
Oh yeah.
As you said, it's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see when some of our other ones come up. So yeah, that's episode 1. We're gonna have 3 more. By the end of it, we will have definitively ranked every Zelda. Nobody needs to try after this. Give this a video a like if you enjoyed it. Let us know what rankings you would put these 4 games.
Yeah.
That will be interesting.
I'm sure nobody in the world has ever ranked just these 4 games.
This is a whole new genre of ranking. We're going to see the top 4.
I don't even know what to list these as. You got a console game, an 80s game.
We're all over the spectrum time-wise. Anyway, give this video a like, check out some of our other videos, subscribe, and thanks for watching.